All right, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining NCDEQ for our Volkswagen Settlement Grant Management System webinar. There are still some people that are registered that have yet to enter, so we'll give everyone a couple more minutes and then we'll begin our presentation. Thank you. All right, thank you everyone for your patience. I think we've had a few more people enter in since our 10 o'clock start, so I think we'll begin our presentation. Again, thank you all for joining NCDQ this morning for their Volkswagen Settlement Grant Management System webinar. I'm Stephen Rice, an environmental specialist for the Division of Air Quality and the Level 2 Program Manager, and I'm joined by additional DAQ staff who manage other aspects of Volkswagen Settlement. A few housekeeping rules before we get started. All attendees will be muted during the webinar. Questions can be submitted in the Q&A box and will be addressed during the question and answer time if not covered in the presentation. The raised hand feature will be disabled until the question and answer time and will only be for those who called into the webinar by phone. For those calling in, pressing *3 will raise your hand and pressing *3 again will lower your hand. All other attendees must use the Q&A box to submit questions. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available at a later date. Finally, we have an hour to cover the grant management system in detail, but if we complete everything and answer all questions in less time, we have the option to adjourn early. If we're not able to answer all questions by the end of the hour, we will let you know how to get your questions to us. When today's presentation becomes available on the DAQ Volkswagen website, be aware that links found in the slides will only be active when used in presentation mode. This webinar is the first of many webinars for Phase 2 of the North Carolina Volkswagen Settlement and will mostly pertain to the use of the GMS in regards to the transit program. Today's presentation includes information on how to register for an NCID, how to gain access to the grant management system, also known as the GMS, to submit your applications, an overview of the GMS, information on where to find answers after this webinar, and a time for questions and answers. I would like to remind attendees that this is not a public forum for comments on the implementation of the Volkswagen settlement. So to request access to the DAQ grants management system, you will need an NCID to complete the access request form. In the slide, we have provided links for NCID registration, as well as a how to create an NCID guide, and I will walk through the steps of creating an NCID after this next slide. Some important NCID info. If you already have an individual or government NCID, there is no need to create a new NCID. If you are a current user of the NCDOT grant system, you do not need a new NCID and can use your current EBS username on the GMS Access Authorization form. Also, once you have completed an NCID request, you will receive a new NCID user registration email from ncid.notifications@ncid.gov. You must click the link in that email and follow the instructions to complete the registration of your NCID before submitting the GMS Access Authorization form. So to begin the process of creating an NCID for GMS Access, you need to go to ncid.nc.gov and click the register link, which is highlighted in this slide. You'll be taken to the new user registration page where you'll click the individual NCID option. Should be that top option there, again highlighted. Now you'll enter information in the text fields. There are no requirements for what your NCID username should be when it comes to the GMS, but in general, it should be easy for you to remember. When the required information is all entered, click the Continue button. Now the system needs to verify your information. A code was sent to the email address which you entered, and you'll need to go there, check your email for this code. So here's an example of that verification email, which contains the 6-digit code. And again, that information, that code needs to be entered back in the previous slide. So after entering the code and clicking check code, you'll receive confirmation that your information has been verified. Click continue to see the remaining setup steps. At this stage, you'll need to create security questions and answer to activate your NCID account. Click the continue button to complete this step. So as you can see, there are 5 security questions you'll need to configure for your account. Once the questions are selected and the answers are provided, click Save Answers. So pretty simple. This completes your NCID creation process. If you experience issues with your NCID and your password, you'll need to go to the ncid.nc.gov webpage where we started to retrieve your username, to retrieve your password, or to unlock your account. There is a need help link on that page for other NCID problems or questions as well. Your NCID password will expire and you should receive an email beforehand alerting you to this. I believe it's every 90 days you need to update the password, so please stay up to date with that and be checking your emails from anything regarding your NCID. So now that we have our NCID for new GMS users, to gain access to the grants management system, you'll need to complete a DAQ GMS access authorization form and a state of North Carolina substitute W-9 form. You can download these forms on DAQ's Volkswagen website, and the rule of thumb is the earlier you have access to the grant management system, the better. It will take time to process these forms, so please do not wait until the last minute before the transit or any other application is to go live. Get us this information as soon as you can so we can process and get you in the grants management system. So on the DAQ access authorization form, you can see that an organization may add up to 3 organized users to the GMS. Please note that a separate form is required for each organizational user, and the organization address will need to match on each submitted form. Each user will need their own unique Ncid username. Once completed, please scan and attach the form or forms in an email to svc.ncvwapplication@ncdnr.gov. So for third-party access authorization forms, or in cases that an applicant has a third party submitting applications on their behalf, the following procedures must be followed. The applicant must provide in writing that they are authorizing this third party to submit applications and other information on their behalf, and the third party will need to obtain their own NCID and submit an access authorization form with the applicant's organization address information and the third party's phone number and email address. On that form, the third party's title should be listed as contractor on the form. So what would this look like? Here we can see a third-party access authorization example where an organization called Main Street Transit is seeking the assistance of John Doe from the company Southern Energy for their Volkswagen project. This would be John Doe's authorization form following the acquisition of his NCID. You can see that he used his NCID and name in the form, but then used Main Street Transit's information for organization name, address, and telephone. He then designated himself as a contractor, provided his email address, and would eventually go on to certify the form before submission. An email from Main Street Transit, which authorizes John Doe to do this project, could read, Main Street Transit is applying for VW Transit Bus Program funding. John Doe from Southern Energy will be the point of contact for us and will also manage the project. So on the slide, we can see part of the first page of the State of North Carolina Substitute W-9 form. This form allows DAQ to set up an organization with new GMS users in the North Carolina accounting system in order to receive reimbursement payments. Please double check that all required fields with an asterisk are filled in when you complete and submit this form. And as I said before, this form and the access authorization form are available to download on the DAQ Volkswagen website. We encourage you to fill in these documents electronically versus by hand. So some of this information was just said, but it is important information. An organization is allowed up to 3 authorized users. If you are a current user of the NCDOT grant system, use that EBS username on the access authorization form. Once your GMS registration is complete, you'll receive a welcome to the DAQ Enterprise Business System email from service account-SAP account. And as we'll see in a little bit, there are step-by-step tutorials in the grants management system to help you navigate that experience. Speaking of which, now we've come to the GMS demo. I won't go into fine detail about the transit and shuttle bus program application itself, since it will be covered by Melanie during her program webinar on February 17th, but I will show you how to use the GMS tutorials and how to submit an application. This slide has links to both the GMS portal and a sample application found on the transit program website. So sorry, experiencing some technical difficulties trying to transition to the grants management system. All right, here we go. Okay, so following the links that we provided, you will be directed to the GMS. This is the first page that you will see. And again, this is assuming that you already have your NCID, and you will use that NCID and the password to log in to the GMS. So I'm going to log in right now. All right, so toward the top of this page, you will see a tile for Division of Air Quality Grants. Click that tile to be directed to the correct GMS applications. So again, once you log in, you should see Division of Air Quality Grants tile right here. We're going to click that tile. It's going to open up a new window. And now you're looking at your GMS homepage. Here you can find the link to the DAQ training library, as well as links to create, view, and edit an application. Right now, I'm going to click the Create New Application link. So if you click the search button, as I'm about to right now, you will see the links for all open applications. I see down here the link to the transit bus program. So I'm going to click that link and open the application. So without providing specifics to the transit program requirements, applicants will need to complete all aspects of this application and submit their application before the application window closes. The Submit button is found in the Certification tab. The last step of submitting your application would be to check this box, to add your authorized representative information, and then click Submit. At that point, you'll receive confirmation that you have submitted an application for the Volkswagen Transit program. So if I did really start an application and opted to save and close it, before submitting, we can see how I would edit that application with the information found in the grants management training library. So I'm going to go back to the grant home. And you'll see here the link to the training library, which opens up a new window. And in the training library, we see various topics listed here on the left. And each of these topics has a video or infographic to explain how to use the GMS features. So let me click Edit Application, and we'll watch it take us through that process. So on this first screen, you see the list of steps for editing an application, or by clicking this Try It button, the training library will walk us through the steps. So again, if I click that Edit Application form, you can enter the number of your application, or you can click Search without entering that number. Either way should bring up the application that you had saved. And now we can look at all the information that was entered in your application. You can go through these tabs and make changes as you deem necessary. And after everything is done, we'll click Close and Save. So if you are still not ready to submit your application, you've at least now saved an updated version of your application. If this was the last time you needed to make edits and you are ready to submit your application, you would have gone to that certification tab and clicked Submit. That takes it from your workflow to the DAQ workflow, and DAQ is then able to review that application. So that was a short exploration of the grants management system and its features. After you gain access, we encourage you to log in and play around to get more comfortable with it before applications are live. And a reminder that if you want a more detailed account of the transit program application and the requirements for that program, this will be given on February 17th. So in closing, Phase 2 school bus, transit bus, clean heavy duty diesel, DC Fast and Level 2 programs are all reimbursement programs. This is similar to Phase 1, and we'll be seeing this in Phase 2. We will not accept paper, faxed, or scanned applications. All applications must be entered and submitted via the DAQ grants management system. If you're not currently on our mailing list and would like to receive email updates about the Volkswagen Settlement Program, please send an email with the word subscribe in the subject line to daq.nc_VWgrants@ncdenr.gov. If you have questions following this webinar and need some answers, you can visit the frequently asked questions section of the Volkswagen website. And if you don't find the answers there, please email your questions again to daq.nc_VWgrants@ncdenr.gov. There are several resources and partners that DAQ worked with in Phase 1 that you will also be able to utilize in Phase 2. Contact information for this list is available on the DAQ Volkswagen website. Here are your DEQ General Volkswagen contacts for Phase 2. We have Brian Phillips, the Mobile Sources Compliance Branch Supervisor, and Robin Barrows, the Allied Program Supervisor and in charge of Volkswagen Outreach. Here are your Volkswagen program contacts for Phase 2. In particular, today's information is most important to the Transit Bus Program, and Melanie Henderson is the manager of the Transit Bus Program. So this concludes today's Grant Management System webinar, and now we will address questions that were collected in the Q&A box. Our host will now attempt to enable the raise hand feature for those who called into the webinar by phone. Pressing *3 again will raise your hand, and pressing *3 then again will lower your hand. All other attendees must use that Q&A box to submit questions. So for our Q&A team, did we receive any questions this morning?
We sure did. My name is Jill Vitus, and I am one of the program managers, and I'm just going to go through the questions that we've got in the Q&A box. The first question that we had was specific to DC fast charging infrastructure, which was not necessarily the focus of this particular webinar, and just wondering about priority corridors. Dave Willis responded to that one. I just want to note that the only currently open application is the transit and shuttle bus. So the DC Fast, Level 2, any of the other ones that are going to be open up shortly have not opened. So the only one that you'll be able to get to is the transit and shuttle bus application. Our first question that's specific to what we were presenting today, they wanted to provide the link to the Ncid site, and Melanie did that. It's and I don't know, Stephen, if you wanted to go back to that slide that had the web address for Ncid, getting your Ncid.
Sure. Let's find the easiest way to do this without just
If that's not easy, I'll just read what we Melanie put in there, but it's https // ncid.nc.gov. Yeah, there it is. Stephen.
Yeah, here we go. I didn't want to just scroll through,
Yep.
But yes, this is the main information to begin your registration process. Again, the links will be available when the presentation is made available.
Randy Hume wanted to know, I have an Ncid, but my email has changed. Do I need to change my email, or how do I change my email for the Ncid? Will this affect my ability to access the grant management system that I already have?
I could see that impacting the ability to get into the grants management system because the information entered to access it is based on the NCID, and if that NCID password needed to be updated and it hasn't due to the email change, which wasn't, I'm assuming, just wasn't done on the backside, then there might be some issues there. I would recommend trying to test that information. You can go to, again, that link and log into your NCID. This link is not only to create the NCID, but to log into your NCID account. If you experience any issues using the most up-to-date credentials that you think you have, then you may need to contact that Need Help service and get that information updated. Unfortunately, that's something out of the hands of DAQ. That's something specifically um, done with the NCID IT team.
Dave Willis also said that he believes that there's a possibility that you might have to create a new NCID with a new email address. So just like Stephen said, you want to go ahead and get in there and test it, see what happens, see if there is a way to change your email. Nikki Hensley asked if we are both the contractor or the applicant on what happens if we're both a contractor or applicant on a project by project basis.
Well, someone would only be designated a contractor if they are being put in charge of a project that they are not part of that organization. So if there was a city that applied um, for, in this case, a transit project, and they wanted an outside entity of that city to assist, that's when that third party authorization form would be required, and the individual from that third party would enter contractor, but that they were a contractor for that city. If someone from that city was going to manage that program or that project, when they fill out the authorization form, they would just list their specific title within the city and submit the form that way. So again, the need to put a contractor um, as your position description would only be if you are not of the company or the organization that is actively doing the project.
Thank you, Stephen. Cindy Forrester asked, will these slides be made available after the webinar?
Hi, Cindy. Yes, the slides will be made into a PDF and placed on the Volkswagen webpage. Again, there would be ways to use the links found in these slides, but everything will be made available and you'll have full access to this information. And the recording of today will be available as well. So for anyone that wants to review a certain part of what was said, the recording will be available on the webpage.
Awesome. Thanks, Stephen. Those are all the questions that I currently see in the Q&A box. And I guess we can see if there are any additional questions.
Yeah, as we wait for more questions to come in, I guess the transit program manager, Melanie Henderson, is on the webinar today. Not to put you on the spot, Melanie, but was there anything that you wanted to say while we have some of the transit crowd here?
Hello, everyone. As he said, I'm Melanie Henderson. I am the Transit and Shuttle Bus Program Manager. As Stephen has mentioned, we are going to be having a Transit and Shuttle Bus webinar next Thursday, February 17th from 10 to 12. I recommend if you have not registered for that webinar, go ahead and do that. Also, when signing up for GMS, I'd like to remind people you are allowed up to 3 contacts are 3 people to have access to the GMS for each application. So even if you are a contractor, you can have a representative of the city, county, whoever is the primary applicant. They can also have representation and access to the same application in GMS. With the transit, we were the first to go live. We went live on February 1st. Applications are due May 2nd. I am going to strongly recommend that you do not wait until the last minute. If there are issues with applying, we're not going to make extensions. So if you are interested in applying for Phase 2 transit and shuttle bus funding, go ahead and work on getting this GMS access and get in there and play around. If you do have questions, my contact information is right there. So please feel free to contact me. I know Randy asked about the NCID. If you're running into issues, Randy, I know who you're with, and if need be, we can work with you. But I would look at contacting the IT and possibly getting a new NCID. You may have to complete another access authorization form for us once you get that new NCID. If anybody has specific transit questions, feel free to ask, but do sign up for our webinar that's going to be held next Thursday, February 17th.
Okay, we did get another question. This isn't specific to GMS access or to the transit. Kimberly Conley wanted to know, when do we anticipate the level 2 and DC fast charge applications to be open?
Well, at this time, the RFPs for those programs have not been released yet. I know we wanted to kind of look through the lens of transit for today's presentation. My recommendation is just to keep your eye on the website for the RFPs when they're released. Again, you can subscribe to the email address, and I'll bring that back up right here to get updates on the RFP releases and on when the applications are available, and more information on the windows of the applications. And again, I'll say that we'll be having presentations similar to today's about the GMS and about NCID, but through the lens of the other programs as those RFPs are released. So that information should be covered at a future presentation.
Stephen, that is all the questions that I'm seeing right now.
Okay. Well, Jill, thank you for fielding those questions. And Melanie, thank you for providing some additional information. I mentioned a few times in the presentation and mentioned again by Melanie, we really encourage everyone to sign up for that transit webinar next week to really get more in-depth information on that program in particular. Going forward, there will be additional webinars with it covering additional topics. So again, for anyone that had questions outside of the transit program today, we really encourage you to keep an eye on those webinars, take the opportunity to join those, and if the questions are not answered, you'll be able to ask them at that time. And if we don't have any more questions, let me just put the contact information up one more time.
And Stephen, may I give a reminder?
Yes, you may.
And just reminding you, once you get your NCID set up, we're also going to need that substitute W-9 when you submit your access authorization form to us for access to the grant management system. So first step is to get that NCID set up, and as Stephen showed you, as register as an individual, and then you will need to complete the substitute W-9 form, which can be found on our website and submit that along with the access authorization form to the email address shown on the screen here.
Yes, thank you, Melanie. Definitely important information as people prepare themselves for the application. Those two forms, the access authorization and the W-9 form, both are available at the forms required webpage. The link for that is in this slide. Again, we really encourage people in transit right now, but in general for all programs, to not wait on submitting those forms in case there is a problem with setting something up in the grants management system. It only delays the ability to apply. And for anyone that applied in phase one, they know how competitive these programs are. Even though there will be additional funding in phase two compared to phase one, we definitely would encourage people to get this information to us as soon as possible. All right, well, if there are no more questions submitted, and Melanie did a great job providing some additional information. Really appreciate everyone's attendance today, and I hope you found this webinar helpful. All the contact information and the grants management system information found in the presentation are also found on the DHU website. Thank you all again for your time, and we look forward to working with you in phase two. Thank you, and have a great day, everyone.